They thought her stutter made her stupid. For 3 weeks, the students at Roosevelt High had treated Sarah like she was incompetent, incapable of real teaching. But when Tommy Rodriguez challenged her knowledge of military history, Sarah's training kicked in. What happened next would show everyone that sometimes the person you underestimate the most is the one who knows secrets that could change the world. Sarah Mitchell was 34 years old, short and quiet. She'd been working as a substitute history teacher at Roosevelt High for 3 weeks. The regular teacher, Mrs. Anderson, was on maternity leave, and Sarah had taken her place. Problems started from day one. Sarah had a speech impediment. She stuttered. Especially during stressful moments, words would get stuck on her lips. Good morning, class," she said on the first day. "I'm Mrs. Mitchell." Giggles rose from the back rows. 17-year-old Jake Morrison was among the loudest laughers. "Teacher, you should take speech therapy," he'd said that day. "How are you going to teach like that?" Sarah had blushed but continued. For 3 weeks, every day brought the same humiliation, the same mockery, the same disrespect, but the students didn't know Sarah's past. From 2010 to 2018, she'd served as a military intelligence specialist in the U.S. Army. Staff Sergeant Sarah Mitchell. She spoke 6 languages: English, Arabic, Farsi, Russian, Mandarin, and Pashto. Her stutter came from her military service, too. In 2016, in Afghanistan, during a traumatic brain injury she sustained under enemy fire, her speech center had been affected. But her mind was still sharp, her knowledge still deep, her training still perfect. Tommy Rodriguez was 18 years old, the biggest student in class. With his build, he played football on the school team and thought he was very smart. "Mrs. Mitchell," Tommy said, mimicking Sarah's stutter, "this Vietnam War stuff is so boring." The class laughed. Sarah took a deep breath. "Tommy, please be respectful." "Respectful?" Tommy stood up. "You're not even a real teacher, just a substitute, and you can't even speak properly." Jake joined in. "Yeah, how do you expect us to learn?" Sarah clenched her fists. Due to her PTSD, these situations were very hard for her. But beyond that, these young people's ignorance and disrespect saddened her. "Tommy," Sarah said, "what do you think you know about military history?" "Enough. My dad's a Vietnam vet." Sarah nodded. This was interesting. "Well, did you ask your dad which region he served in Vietnam?" "Of course. He fought at Khe Sanh." A different light appeared in Sarah's eyes. "Khe Sanh. Interesting." Tommy puffed out his chest proudly. "My dad fought heroically there." "I'm sure he did," Sarah said. "So, Tommy, what's the date of the siege of Khe Sanh?" Tommy hesitated. 1969? 1968, Sarah said, her stutter suddenly diminished. January 21st. July 9th, 1968. The class began paying attention to Sarah. Tommy's wrong answer was surprising. "Okay, give me a chance," Tommy said, getting a bit defensive. "Ask other questions." Sarah was different now. Her military training had kicked in. For what tactical importance was Khe Sanh base defended? Tommy looked on silently. Sarah continued. To control the Ho Chi Minh Trail and divert attention from the Tet Offensive. Jake interrupted. "Lucky guess. You know it from Google." Sarah turned to Jake. "What is Operation Niagara, Jake?" Jake remained silent. "A B-52 bombing operation that lasted 177 days. 100,000 tons of bombs dropped around Khe Sanh." The class began to quiet down. Sarah's knowledge was very detailed. "Well," Tommy said, "you memorized those things. The real question is, how are decisions made in war? How do commanders think?" Sarah smiled. "Very good question, Tommy. Do you really want to learn?" "Sure." Sarah turned to the board. Chalk in her hand, 8 years of military intelligence experience in her head. Military decision-making process has 5 stages. Sarah was writing on the board. Her stutter had lessened. Her voice had strengthened. First stage, mission analysis. What are you trying to accomplish? Second stage, threat assessment. Where is the enemy? What are they doing? What are they planning? Tommy was listening carefully. So, how do you find that out? Sarah turned to him. SIGINT, HUMINT, GEOINT. Signals intelligence, human intelligence, geospatial intelligence. What do those mean? Another student asked. SIGINT, radio intercepts, communications disruption. HUMINT, espionage, human sources. GEOINT, satellite imagery, map analysis. Jake stared in amazement. How do you know these things? Sarah paused. Her stutter had returned. Because what? Tommy insisted. Tell us who you are. Sarah breathed in. She'd made her decision. I'm Staff Sergeant Sarah Mitchell, U.S. Army Military Intelligence Specialist. I served for 8 years. The classroom fell into silence. Was this the stuttering substitute teacher they'd been mocking for 3 weeks? You were a soldier. Intelligence gathering. Listening to enemy communications. Translation. Sarah turned to the board and wrote something. Ana ata hadath al-Arbiya, wal al-Farsiya, wal Bashtoniya, wal Siniya, wal Rosiya. What does that say? A student asked. It's Arabic saying, I speak Arabic, Farsi, Pashto, Chinese, and Russian. The class looked at each other in amazement. Tommy asked shamefully, So you stutter? Sarah smiled, but it was a sad smile. In 2016 in Afghanistan, I came under enemy fire. I suffered a brain injury. My speech center was affected. Could you tell us about that day? Jake asked, now with completely different respect. Sarah thought, It's hard to talk about, but educational. Sarah turned to the class. 2016, Helmand Province, Afghanistan. My team and I were on a hostage rescue operation. The Taliban had taken 15 civilians hostage. Our mission was to rescue them. Tommy leaned forward. How many of you were there? 6 people. I was the intelligence specialist, radio operator, translator, and coordinator. Sarah closed her eyes, remembering that day. The operation started at 5:30 in the morning. I was listening to Taliban communications, trying to learn their plans. At exactly 7:15, the Taliban discovered our position. They started firing. Sarah's voice began to tremble, but she continued. I was calling for support on the radio. Arabic, Pashto, English, coordinating in 3 languages at once. Then what happened? Jake was holding his breath. Rocket attack. Hit me while I was in the shelter. Shrapnel fragment lodged in my head. The class listened quietly. 6 hours of surgery. Doctors didn't know if I'd be able to speak. What happened to the hostages? Tommy asked. Now, completely seriously, Sarah smiled. The operation was successful. 15 civilians were rescued. While I was in the hospital, my team completed the mission. But you were wounded, Jake said. Is that fair? Jake, fairness is a different concept in war. I had done my job. People were rescued. That was enough. Sarah turned to the board and wrote something else. Geroi ne rojdayutsa oni delayut vebar. This is Russian. Heroes aren't born. They make choices. Tommy raised his hand. Mrs. Mitchell, what was your choice? To continue every day. To teach despite my speech disorder. Because education is also service. Sarah looked at the class. You mocked me for 3 weeks, but I stayed here. I know that you are valuable people. Jake hung his head in shame. We really messed up. Yes, you did, Sarah said, but this is a learning opportunity. That's what real education is. Tommy stood up. Mrs. Mitchell, I formally apologize to you. We judged you without knowing you. Sarah nodded. Tommy, apology accepted, but what's really important is learning from this. What kind of lesson? Another student asked. Don't judge people by their appearance. Everyone has a story. Jake raised his hand. Could we hear your other languages? Sarah smiled. She began speaking in Pashto, then Farsi, then Mandarin. With each language change, the class's amazement grew. Wow, Tommy said. You must be a real genius. No, Tommy. I'm just someone who got educated and gained experience. Sarah wrote one more thing on the board. Ilm hasil karna, har Musulman mard or orat porfaras hai. This is Urdu. It means education is mandatory for every man and woman. How many languages do you know exactly? A curious student asked. 6 languages fluently, 3 languages intermediate, 2 languages beginner. From that day on, everything changed. Students looked at Sarah with completely different eyes, seeking answers to their questions, trying to learn from her experiences. Tommy came to her after class. "Mrs. Mitchell, was my dad really at Kisan?" Sarah thought. "What's your father's full name and which unit was he in?" "Michael Rodriguez, 3rd Marine Division." Sarah closed her eyes, scanning her military database memory. "Yes, Tommy, your father was really there. 1st Battalion, 26th Marines. Those were very hard days." Tommy's eyes filled with tears. "Dad always talks about those days, but doesn't tell the details. Because it's very painful, Tommy, but your father is a heroic man." Sarah put her hand on Tommy's shoulder. "And you're his son. Be proud of him." Jake also approached. "Mrs. Mitchell, how can we make it up to you?" "By learning, Jake, and by learning not to judge teachers by their appearance." Weeks passed. Sarah was no longer just a substitute teacher. Students were learning military history, language learning techniques, geography, and geopolitics from her. "Mrs. Mitchell," Tommy said one day, "do you think I should join the Army too?" Sarah thought. "Tommy, military service is a big responsibility, but you're a strong young man. If you really want to serve, the Army would welcome you. Which branch would you recommend?" "Intelligence. You're a smart kid. You have analytical thinking ability." Jake laughed. "Tommy has analytical thinking?" Tommy hit Jake. "You come too. Let's see how smart you are." Sarah smiled. This wasn't malicious mockery anymore. It was friendly teasing. "Kids, you all have different talents. What's important is using these talents in the right direction." After class, the principal called Sarah. "Sarah, we're getting wonderful feedback from students. I want to offer you a permanent position." Sarah was surprised. "Really? Really? You're a very valuable teacher." At the end of the semester, the school held a special ceremony. Sarah was to receive the Teacher of the Year award. Tommy and Jake were hosting the ceremony. "This year," Tommy said at the microphone, "we're honoring someone who taught us a very important lesson." Jake continued. "What she taught us wasn't just history. She taught us respect, understanding, and the courage to question our prejudices." When Sarah came on stage, she received a standing ovation. "Dear students," Sarah said, her stutter now very light, "the greatest award you gave me this year was allowing me to let you know me. I didn't just teach you history, you taught me too. Patience, forgiveness, and the value of second chances." Tommy ran on stage and hugged Sarah. "Mrs. Mitchell, you're our real teacher." Jake joined in. "And you're our hero," Sarah smiled. "No, kids, you're the heroes, because you learned from your mistakes and changed." After the ceremony, students gathered around Sarah. Everyone wanted to take pictures with her. "Mrs. Mitchell," said a small 9th grader, "I want to be like you." Sarah stroked her hair. "You're already a unique hero, sweetheart. You just need to discover it." Tommy approached. "Mrs. Mitchell, can I say something?" "Sure, Tommy. When we heard your stutter, we laughed, but now I understand that we were the ones who were really weak." Sarah looked at Tommy. "Tommy, strength isn't physical. Strength is being able to stand up in the face of difficulties. My stutter reminds me, I survived, I'm here, and I'm still teaching." Jake raised his hand. "So what do you want from us?" Sarah looked at the class. "Just one thing. Show respect to every person you meet, because you never know, that person might have changed the world. And remember, heroes don't always speak perfectly. Sometimes they stutter, but they say the right things." The moral of this story: don't judge people by their physical characteristics, speech disorders, or weaknesses. That stuttering teacher might be an intelligence specialist who speaks 6 languages and knows world secrets. Behind every person is a story. Behind every difficulty is a strength. Sarah Mitchell was mocked for 3 weeks. But after those 3 weeks, she showed that real strength is continuing to serve despite difficulties. And real teaching isn't just transferring information, but teaching empathy and understanding.